Hi, I'm Elaine Harding. Welcome to my blog at stampwithelaine.com and welcome to week 12 of 12 in my 12-week Christmas countdown series. Being the final episode, I wanted to go out with a bang, so I made this bespoke box, and inside it holds a 200ml bottle of wine, and this is a bottle of Cava. And I made this compartment to hold Ghirardelli chocolates. It does use a lot of cardstock, so be warned. To stamp my tag, I use the Whimsical Trees stamp set, and to die cut my label, I use the tailor-made tags dies. A 1-inch circle punch. I know that's retired, but if you have it, fantastic. Otherwise, you could use one of the layering circle dies. And I'm using is the open weave ribbon in Evening Evergreen. I'll run through the cardstock you need for box lid. This is in mint macaron, and this measures 7 1/16 by 11 3/8. All the metric measurements will be put in brackets in the subtitles. For the box base, you need 2 sheets. I cut these from a 12 by 12 inch sheet, and this measures 11 3/4 by 7 1/2. Then you need a box divider. So this piece measures 4 1/2 by 10 3/4. 2 divider extensions. One will measure 2 1/4 by 3 inches, and the other measures 2 1/4 by 2 1/2 inches. For the bottle cradle, you need a piece that measures 8 1/4 by 5 1/2 inches. For the neck rest, this measures 1 1/2 inches by 3 1/2 inches. This piece I've cut at 5 1/2 by 7 1/2, so that you only need to score it once and then cut it up into 4 pieces for the chocolate risers. So I'll give you those measurements as we go along, but this is the overall size of the cardstock. I'll put the scoring instructions in as well. And these are 2 for the box side liners. These measure 2 1/4 by 9 1/4 inches. So bring in the box base first. We'll construct that first, and you need to score the short side at 1/2 inch and 3 inches. Then rotate the cardstock so that the 1/2 inch score line is at the top, and you score at 1/2 inch, 8 3/4 inches and 11 1/4 inches, and you partially score at 9 1/4 inches down to that first score line. Okay, and you repeat for the second piece. Now I've had to elevate, so put a section in here to raise the platform where these individual risers are for the square chocolates. This chocolate riser is 10 1/4 by 4 inches. So we want to burnish our score lines for the box base, and this is so that you can see where I'm cutting a lot easier. Now this is how you cut the 2 halves of your box base. These flaps here are to reinforce the tops of the box, so don't cut those away. And this is the bit which is the side of your box, which you then need to join to the other half. Orient your cardstock so that the 1/2 inch score line is on your right, and this square with the partial scoring is at the bottom right. Then you cut up this score line here, and also the one opposite it with a small rectangle. Okay, this 1/2 inch score line here at the one side of the box, you cut that away so this rectangle's gone. Then with the long side, you cut along that partial score line, and this is surplus to requirements. Then miter the corners in here. So that's the flap you're going to join to the other half of the box. Now I'm going to rotate the cardstock. So now this flap is on the left. Angle that cut there. Angle this cut here. And this long rectangle on the main panel, the wider panel, you cut off. Okay, and then on the 1/2 inch score line, you miter the corner there. So essentially you've got two halves that look like this. So now you want to glue the center panel in the opposite direction. Like so. I should cut this long rectangle away. So now I want to glue these flaps down. And these are just the sides of the box to help make it sturdier. And reinforce the sides here as well. Before I assemble the box, essentially it's going to go like this. There's your box base. But before I do that, I want to put my box side liners on, and you score these at 1/2 inch on each end. So rotate it 180 degrees and score that end at 1/2 inch. And the same with this piece, 1/2 inch, 1/2 inch on the other end. I'm going to glue this together, so you apply adhesive and then butt it up to the score line, like so. Make sure that they marry up, okay? Now I'm going to glue this to the side panels. I'm going to glue the flaps together like so, and then apply adhesive on this side. And glue that together. Actually, I'll use my scoreboard to make sure that it's square. Repeat for this side. Last one. Be careful where you put the glue. You don't want to put it too far over, otherwise you get glue everywhere. So that's your box base constructed. Now you want to take your divider piece, which is the 4.5 by 10 3/4 inch basic black. This is a contrasting colour because my bottle of wine was black, so I chose to line the inside of the box in a different colour in black. So you put the short side at the top and you score at 2.25 inches. Rotate your cardstock so that the long side is on the top and you score at 8.25 inches. Then you need the divider extension pieces. There is a long one and a short one. Long one, which is 2.25 in height by 3 inches. Score one end at 1/2 inch. And the other piece, which is 2.25 by 2.5, you also score at 1/2 inch. Finish the score line. Now, as you can see, the bottle section is wider than the chocolate section, so we're going to need to trim off one side of the divider. Cut it down the middle on the short side. Bring in the trimmer and fold that back. Line it at 2 inches and then trim it off. This is going to be shorter now. Burnish the score lines on your divider extensions. I'm just going to miter the corners on this just a tad. And then on the opposite side, you pair it up, longer section with the longer section up there and the short one with the shorter section up here. So put the glue on, fold it over, and do the same for this. Now you can glue this together, only the long section. Fan this out so that it makes a H section, like so. Set this aside, and now we want to score the bottle cradle. So bring that scoreboard back. The bottle cradle measures 5.5 by 8.25. So you take that with the short side on top, you score at 1 inch, 2.25 inches, 3.25 inches, and at 4.5 inches. So these two ends are 1 inch. I forgot to record. So basically this, you start with a mountain fold on the bottle cradle, and the next two are valley folds, and the last one is a mountain fold. So I applied adhesive to the last mountain fold, the 1 inch on the 1 inch score line, and glued that to the divider. Then I put glue on this side so I can glue it to the side of the box. Now this is a bit tricky. In case it's too snug a fit, you might want to just snip a little bit off, because with all the paper here with the extra flaps, it might be too thick. So you cut just a tad off, maybe about 1/16 of an inch, so that it won't make the paper bow. And do the same for the bottom. Okay, I might have to refresh the glue here because I discovered I hadn't pressed record. Right, so you want to fan those out and pop it in the box. Make sure it's at the bottom. Then you want to put adhesive here so that the cut will stay in place. Do the opposite end. The next step is to put the riser for the chocolates. The chocolate riser measures 4 inches by 10¼ inches, so you want to score that at 1 inch on all 4 sides. 1 inch. Rotate your cardstock. Burnish the lines. Then you can just miter these sections here. You don't need to glue these, you just slip it in and push it down. So that's how it would fit. But I'm not going to do that yet because I need to make my Ghirardelli chocolate risers. Cut it out of a whole piece of cardstock so that I only need score it once. But if I cut 4 individual pieces, then I'll have to score it 4 times. So there's method in the madness. So this has been sized so that you can cut 4 Ghirardelli risers on this piece of cardstock. So it's 5½ by 7½ and you score on the short side at the top at 3/4 inches. That's the height of your riser. And basically you're making 4 little triangular pieces. The next score line is 2 3/4 and 4 3/4. So I'll run through that again. 3/4 inch, 2 3/4 and 4 3/4. I'll burnish the score lines. Bring in my mini guillotine and align it at 1 7/8 inches and cut every 1 7/8 inches. And run my stamp and seal. And overlap that so that it's on the top. And do the same for the remainder. Bring back my riser and want to run some stamp and seal on the base. So then I can pop these on. Make sure that's secure. And then I can pop this in. The neck piece is 1½ by 3½ and with the long side on top you score at 1 inch, 1½ inches, 2½ inches and 3 inches. Burnish all the score lines and then on the end stamp and seal and glue that together. Bring in your bottle of wine and go past the cork so it's round about there. And press that inside. Now I can bring in my chocolates, and so that they don't move around I've just put some stamp and seal on there so that it will stick to the box and not move around. So now we'll set that aside and we'll do the lid. To construct the lid, and again it's done in 2 halves, so this measures 7 1/16 inch by 11 3/8 inches. So on the short side you score at 2.5, and then rotate the cardstock so that 2.5 inch is on the top. The long side you score at 2.5 all the way down, and at 10 7/8. Partial score at 2 inches down to the 2.5 inch score line. Burnish the score lines. So basically you cut it the same as you would the box base. Where the partial score line is, you cut away that vertically with the long side facing you and the 2.5 inch score line on the bottom. Then you cut along this score line here and miter the corners on the end with short side facing you and the 1/2 inch score line at the bottom nearest to you. You miter the corner here and here, and then cut away that long 1/2 inch piece. At my scoreboard, I want to mark the center point of this, so fold the flaps in and then offer it up to your scoreboard. I've marked the center of my scoreboard at 6 inches with a chalk marker, so this is equidistant. It's overhanging just by 1/8 of an inch either side, so I just want to mark the middle here. And the reason for that is so I can punch out a finger hole exactly in the center with my 1 inch circle punch. So offer it up and just not quite halfway, but just a little bit like that, and do the same for this other one. To lay the 2 pieces together to make up as a whole, so I need to put adhesive in the large wider section here. Now I'm going to place the lid on my box, which I've done, because I want to make sure that it's going to fit. So I'll put adhesive on the flaps here, bring that flap down and close it, hold it until it bonds. Turn my box the other end and put adhesive on here as well, and bring that flap down, and that ensures a snug fit. Now these are the pieces to decorate the box with. In the Whimsy and Wonder Designer Series paper, this is currently out of stock at the moment. I don't know whether it will be back in stock by the time this is published. Although this is mossy green, I chose Evening Evergreen because there wasn't a mossy green ribbon I could use, and I'm using Evening Evergreen ribbon. So we'll adhere this piece. Now this is going to be a box for a man, so I didn't really want pink, and that's why I chose mint macaron for my second box. So the Designer Series paper is 4 inches by 7 3/4, and the Evening Evergreen matte layer is 4¼ inches by 8 inches. So glue on there. So as I go along, I'll have to punch out the excess cardstock from the finger hole. If I glued them all together and then punched, the cardstock would be too thick. So this measures 2¼ by 8 inches. Now if you haven't sufficient paper, you can use a contrasting pattern to glue onto these sides here. But I've used the same pattern, and this measures 2 inches by 7¾ inches. These two matte layers measure 2¼ by 4¼ inches. For the pattern paper, this measures 2 inches by 4 inches. Now we want to unravel the ribbon. If you're using a directional pattern, make sure it's the right way up. I'm going to put some stamp and seal on the underside of the ribbon, and just make sure that the direction of my pattern paper is the right way up. This one, it doesn't matter, so I want this on towards the left side of the box. So I'll stick it down here. Make sure it's right into the corner. Wrap it round. Test how much I need. Cut it off there. And you can see the bend in the ribbon. So I want to avoid that section and just do it on this side. Make sure it's straight and follow it round right into the corner. Then I want a cross section to make sure I have enough. Then you need a liner to cover up these bits, and it's the same size as the lid. So this is 4½ inch by 8¼ inches. Use glue. I've taken a double length of ribbon. I don't know how long it is, but you need to give it a good amount so that it will dangle. Then insert it in your cross underneath. Make sure it's even and tie a knot. I've gone ahead and die cut the largest tailor-made tag label in basic white. And these cut out 3 reinforcement holes, cardstock evening evergreen to match with the rest of my box. The inks I'm using are Tuxedo Black Memento ink and stamping blends. This is from the Subtles collection, and this polished pink one is from the 2021 to 2023 in colour collection. I'm using the markers rather than the blends because alcohol markers will bleed through and I don't want that. So we'll do a bit of stamping, and I've decided to use this image here because it will match with the pattern paper I used. So I'm going to colour the holly in, the berries in polished pink, the leaves in mint macaron. I've snipped off some baker's twine in white, and I'll just pop one strand underneath and the other strand on top. And just tie a knot at the end of the tag. Bring back my box and pop this lid back on. Voila! There's my bespoke box for chocolate and wine finished. Which colour do you prefer, the evening evergreen or the polished pink one? The list of supplies are listed below this video. There's also a list of measurements, both in imperial and metric, on my blog at stampwithelaine.com. I will put a link to the blog post below this video in the Show More section. Sadly, this is the last episode in my 12-week Countdown to Christmas series for 2021. But it will not be the last of the Christmas projects. I will continue to post Christmas themed projects right up to Christmas to make the most use out of the Christmas stash I currently have. So thanks for joining me. I hope you've enjoyed this series and thanks for watching. I'll be back soon with more inspiration. Bye.